Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
According to the saying, nothing is certain except death and taxes. And that tax impact is something that you just can't escape even in retirement. But there are a few steps that you can take to help reduce the impact of taxes on your retirement savings. Thanks for joining us today, everyone, on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. He is the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. Phillip, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be back in the saddle. And it is, it's just hard for me to believe, Danielle, that October is gone and we are in November and election time. And I really can't wait till they get over.
That's right. There's a lot to get ready for. Holidays are coming up. Holiday season is technically here. So this is the time where it's like, if you have not started shopping for those holiday presents, definitely start making that list because... Are
we supposed to start shopping now? Is it time to shop? I'm behind it.
I mean, there's no such thing as doing it too early, right? We want to make sure that we don't get caught up in the crazy holiday season of sales and get kind of taken away there. But Phillip, I'm looking forward to today's show because we're talking about something that many of us try to avoid, and that's taxes, right? So the only thing that stays the same is change. But over the years, we've seen a lot of changes when it comes to taxes. Tell us, what's the number one thing that we should keep on our minds when it comes to taxes?
Well, you're right. I think the number one thing right now is that we are in the lowest tax brackets that I believe we're ever going to see. I just don't see, with the debt that we continue to accumulate and interest rates going up, I just don't see how we can keep our tax rates as low as we are. I mean, think back, Danielle. We've not always had income tax. We've not always had taxes. Back, if you think about it, the first ever estate tax was back in 1797, and they did that to fund the Navy. Before that, all we had was some excise taxes on goods and services, like things like alcohol and tobacco, the sin tax, so to speak, back then. We really didn't get our first income tax until the Civil War came around. And we needed to fund the Treasury in order to be able to fight the war. And so that's when we really saw that first income tax really get passed. Then you think, well, there's a lot of taxes we pay today, and we didn't used to have those, right? The first sales tax, get this, was enacted in 1921. Before that, we didn't have sales tax even. States like Alaska, Delaware, Montana, New Hampshire, and Oregon were the only states that didn't charge a sales tax. And I think a lot of them still today don't have a sales tax. So there's just a lot of things that really kind of got put in perspective when we look at taxes. I mean, then there was gasoline tax. It came around in 1932. Now, I can't tell you how much we end up paying, you and I. What we pay in gas taxes anymore for our vehicles is a big number. It just continues to mount and mount as we continue to move forward, Danielle.
And speaking of income tax, Phillip, I know many people have questions about this. So what are some things that we should know about how different sources of income are taxed, especially in retirement?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, one of the things that happened in the early 80s was Ronald Reagan. As much as we all loved him, he is the one that started the taxation of our Social Security. Prior to that, Social Security was a non-taxable income. However, I think it was 1982, 83, somewhere around there, that it became taxable income. And the rate, back then, it was up to 50%. Well, that wasn't enough. Down the road, that got changed. So now up to 85% of your Social Security can end up being taxed as income. And a lot of people forget that. They don't realize that that is going to be an issue. And that's one of the reasons that when we put together our income planning process, we take note of that. Folks, listen, if you are close to retirement, what does that mean? If you are 5 years out, now's the time to start planning for your retirement. And if you've already retired, it's not too late to get everything in order. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement design.
You know, there's no cost or obligation to talk with Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services. Like he mentioned, it's complimentary. It's a free call. So just don't hesitate to give that number a call, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. You know, Phillip, most people will have Social Security, as one of their sources of income in retirement. So are there any tax impacts when it comes to getting those Social Security checks?
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, back in the early 80s, Social Security became taxable. And so now up to 85% of your benefits may be taxable income, depending on your current situation, because it's all based on your income. So listen, if you're filing a federal tax return as an individual and your combined income is between $25,000 and $34,000, so you're filing single and your income is between $25,000 and $34,000, not really including your Social Security, then up to 50% of your benefits may be taxable. Now, if you're single and your combined income is more than that $34,000, then up to 85% of your Social Security may be taxable. So let's look at the joint numbers now. So if you're filing a joint tax return with your spouse and your combined income is between $32,000 and $44,000, now you may pay tax on up to 50% of your Social Security benefits. And then once you get over that $44,000, it can be up to 85%. Now, there's this funky calculation you have to make to determine how much of your Social Security is taxable. It's not one of those things you can just get out by memory and go through and do real quick. So you'll want to make sure that you take the time, talk with your CPA, your tax advisor, and make sure that you understand how much of your Social Security may end up being taxable in this year.
And Phillip, when it comes to taxes, I know many of us have questions because they keep changing, going up and down, and trying to figure out where I'm being taxed. So how do you talk to people who are concerned, especially about taxes impacting their retirement in the near future?
Well, Danielle, it's part of our core retirement design to really talk about what that looks like, what taxes look like down the road, especially when we think back to 2017 and the passage of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which really did a couple things. It lowered the corporate tax rate to 21%, and then it dropped your and my rates, our top rate, from 39.6 to 37%. So it really did, and dropped your and mine probably down to 12 to 22%. So it was a big deal when we look about that. But in all honesty, we look at that and we talk about what are we paying in taxes and how can we pay the least amount possible. And so when we dive in and look at our core retirement design, remember there's three things we look at there. We look at risk. How much risk do we have in our portfolio? And do we have the right amount of risk? Because here's what I've seen historically is about 60% of the folks out there actually have more risk than they should going into retirement. There's that, about 20% of the folks out there that have it right on the money. They've got the right amount of risk for their current situation. And there's about 20% of the folks out there that don't have enough risk in their portfolio. I got to tell you, Danielle, that not having enough risk can be just as detrimental to your portfolio as having too much risk. And so we want to make sure that we balance that out. The second thing we look at is taxes. We want to make sure that folks are paying the least amount of taxes, not just today, but over their retirement lifetime and the lifetime of their beneficiaries. So we want to expand that out and pay the least amount we can. And that's one of the things that we look at in our core retirement design. And the last part of that is making sure that we have an income plan in place. we want to make sure that we've got the numbers we need to do what we need in order to pay the least amount of taxes and get the most income we can. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement design.
We like to remind you that there's no cost or obligation to talk with Phillip and his team. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Do not hesitate to give the team at Statler Financial Services a call, 863-877-1188. Phillip, you keep mentioning that keyword income. It's the foundational principle, obviously, that we need throughout retirement. And, today's federal income tax rates, they might be the lowest that we've seen the rest of our life, but as you mentioned, after tax rates going down with the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we know that tax rates expire at the end of 2026. So it's not a matter of if, but when they go up. Is that right?
Well, it is. And it's actually a little correction there. It's actually not the end of 2026. It's the beginning of 2026. So 2025 is the last year that we're going to see the tax rates that we have right now. So we know that in 2026, they're automatically going to go up no matter what, unless they can go back in and change the law, which they can do. Mm-hmm. But given what we have in Congress right now, I just don't see that happening. And so, listen, for everybody here that's listening, a few areas that could be a little more tax efficient when it comes to their retirement money is one, I want to be able to help you understand the potential impact tax is going to have on your retirement savings, because it can eat up your savings pretty quick. Learn about ways to reduce or hopefully even eliminate maybe your taxes in retirement. And last, we want to create, again, that income strategy to make sure that your income can last as long as you need it to last. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
There's a short window of opportunity right here to take action to keep taxes from taking too much of a bite of your hard-earned savings. So do not hesitate to give Phillip and his team a call, 863-877-1188. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you are paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 270-201-7080. That's VISIT to 270-201-7080.
Are you confused by all these campaign promises and political talk? Or maybe even frustrated? You're not alone. Phillip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team keep an eye on proposals made by politicians in Washington and up in Tallahassee that could impact your retirement. As tax laws change and programs like Social Security and Medicare are updated, it's important to have a plan that can help protect your future. Your money needs to last beyond election cycles and presidential administrations, and Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services can help you figure out the potential impact on your plan with their election stress test. They'll help you create a plan to navigate changes in our economy and within our government, no matter who's in the Oval Office or the State House. To schedule your stress test, call or text ELECTION to 863-877-1188. Call or text ELECTION to 863-877-1188.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Gone are the days when retirees could rely heavily on substantial external support, like Social Security and robust corporate pension plans. Today, not only are pensions a fading memory, but the reliability of Social Security and benefits is also increasingly uncertain, placing the burden of securing a financially stable retirement more firmly on individuals. So, Phillip, as a financial advisor, what do you feel are some of the greatest risks that threaten financial security during retirement?
Well, I think there's a handful that we see on a regular basis that are concerned to most everybody out there. Let's start with, we're living a lot longer, right? So we've got this increase in life expectancy that so many more people are reaching that, age 100. So that's a big deal. making sure that we don't outlive our money. And part of that is we're living so much longer that becomes a concern going into the planning process. And so I say that's one of the biggest ones is life expectancy and not making sure you don't outlive your money. The second one is market volatility. People are really concerned about the ups and downs of the market, the risk that's there. And that's why, we developed our core retirement design to help, offset some of those issues that people find when it comes to market volatility. And that can be a problem the closer you get to retirement. And then obviously we've had this issue, inflation, for the last couple of years. Inflation is really eating away at people's savings, at the money they're getting. Expenses continue to rise. And not only inflation going up, but we know that at the end of 2025, going into 2026, that we are going to be seeing higher taxes unless Congress does something, which lately they haven't been able to do anything. So I don't think that that's going to change. I think we're going to automatically revert back to the old tax rules that we had prior to the Trump tax code changes. And so we know the taxes are going to go up. We need to plan for that, and we need to build a plan that helps offset some of those rising taxes. And lastly, rising healthcare costs. Healthcare costs have continually risen even higher than inflation. And so that's a big problem when it comes to retiring, because we know that as we retire, our healthcare costs are going to go up. I mean, it's just, the older we are, the more we need the doctors. And so we automatically will see some increases there, Danielle.
Phillip, you've definitely outlined several significant challenges that today's retirees face. You mentioned plenty: increased life expectancy, market volatility, inflation, rising taxes. I mean, the list goes on. So, Phillip, in your experience, what issue do you find most retirees struggling with the most, especially when it comes to planning for their financial security?
Well, let's look at a couple statistics here. On average, men who reach age 65 can expect to live statistically until age 84, while women can expect to live to age 87. Now that's a long time. And I know on my side of the family, I've got some really long genes. My grandmother was 100. I have a grandfather who lived to 90. My dad right now is 87. So, my family seems to outlive these statistics. So it's really concerning to me that we continue to live longer. Well, if we live longer, that increases the impact of all the other risks that we have, like inflation, taxes, and market volatility, as well as healthcare, because those things are stacked, right? If inflation goes up one year, well, that affects the next year because usually inflation is going to go up another year. We don't really see deflation bringing prices back down. Same thing for taxes. Taxes go up. Well, now we got to pay a bigger chunk. Well, that takes money out more than we expected. And so now that starts to deplete our money supply even quicker. And so those are some things that we really need to take a look at. And then the one thing I don't think people really think about enough is a surviving spouse. If somebody passes away, a husband passes away, now a surviving spouse can really be hit hard. They lose income and their tax rates go up typically because they're now single instead of married filing jointly. And so that's a big problem that we see with folks in retirement. And then children, they're having to care for aging parents, and that can be a problem within itself. Folks, all these things that we're talking about today, we look at and cover in our core retirement design, where we'll help you design the retirement you always dreamed of. It's simple. We look at market risk. We look at volatility. We look at income planning and make sure that you have an income plan that's going to last as long as you need it to. And then taxes. We want to make sure folks are paying the least amount of taxes possible. And that's all within our core retirement design. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. It's a 30-minute phone call. You and I will discuss where you are, what path you're on, what maybe you need to do differently. Maybe you're doing everything great. You just need some reassurance. Again, call us at 863-877-1188.
There's no cost or obligation to speak with Phillip and his team. It's simple. There's no cost. There's no obligation. We just encourage you to not plan for retirement alone. Again, call that number 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Phillip, as we continue this conversation about our topic, making your retirement money last as long as you live, what steps can our listeners today take to help ensure that their retirement savings provides the income needed throughout their retirement years?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is we need to create a diversified income stream. We can't rely on one source of income. I mean, we know we're going to have Social Security. A lot of folks now don't have a pension, so they're going to have to create their own pension. And then they've got their investments. And so we need to make sure that we've got a diversified income stream, that we're not just counting on Social Security. We're not just counting on a pension, that we've got that three-legged stool taken care of. And then we need to make sure that we've got sufficient amount of reliable income just to meet our basic expenses. And so we need to make sure we've got that under wraps and ready to go. And then the last thing, we need to make sure we have a written retirement income plan. And we've talked about this a lot on our show. And that's part of our core retirement design. The third leg of that is making sure we have a written retirement income plan where you know where your income is going to come from year in and year out. And it's vitally important that we don't use overarching returns, right? We want to use something that's ultra conservative. Because if that works ultra conservative, we know if markets do better or our income's better, that we'll just be in a better spot down the road. But those are the three things that we really, really need to make sure that we have covered when we head into retirement.
Phillip, a lot of people have questions about this. So with financial security being a top priority, tailored especially to what seems to be indispensable. So can you do something like a personalized retirement income plan for us? So then that way people can kind of have an idea of the overall picture.
So when we put together an income plan, I use a bucket approach, right? We're going to put your money in several buckets, usually 4, sometimes 6 buckets of money, depending upon your current circumstances, because everybody is different. But we want to put those together and make sure that we know where that money is going to come from the first 5 to 7 years you're retired. Where are we getting that money? And then where do we go from there? And at the end, if I live to 100, do I still have some money left? We want to make sure that our growth bucket is keeping up with inflation. It's there to meet emergency things. And so we develop that into our whole system to know, hey, look, here's your retirement income plan. Here's what it looks like. Here's where your money's coming from. And here's what we anticipate that you should have each year. At the end of the time, hey, look, we get down to age 90. Here's how much money you should have left. And maybe at that age, you need more than what we anticipated because of inflation. Hey, now you've got it to work through. And so that's just an area that we have put together in our core retirement design, is that income plan, because it's just so important, Danielle.
And really quick, Phillip, many of our listeners are curious about the timing of retirement planning. So from your professional standpoint, when is the ideal time or age to begin preparing for retirement?
I'm going to say the ideal would be about 5 years before you get ready to retire. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't start a year before or right when you retire. It's the ideal would be 5. But if you've already retired, I'm going to say it's not too late. We can still put together a plan based on your current circumstances and your current portfolios to put together that income plan so that you know where your money is going to come from, month in, month out, year over year. That's important. And again, that's why I developed my core retirement design to help you design that retirement you always dreamed of. And it's a 30-minute phone call where you and I are going to talk candidly about where you are, where you should be, where you need to be, and how are you going to get there. It's 30 minutes. My gift to you. Give me a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis, where we'll look at market volatility, how much risk you have in your portfolio. We'll look at the taxes you're paying now, and are there ways and things that we can do to limit your taxes over your retirement lifetime. And lastly, that all-important written retirement income plan, all part of our core retirement design. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
We always like to remind our listeners that there's no cost or obligation to speak with Phillip and his team at Statler Financial Services. It's simple, like he mentioned. There's no cost, no obligation. All you have to simply do is call 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Well, coming up next, we're going to dive into essential strategies to navigate the challenges of inflation, escalating healthcare costs, and taxes in retirement. That's right. We're going to dive into all of that coming up next right here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be right back.
It might ramp up or it could slow down, but inflation never goes away. Do you know how it could impact your retirement savings? Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Are you confused by all these campaign promises and political talk? Or maybe even frustrated? You're not alone. Phillip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team keep an eye on proposals made by politicians in Washington and up in Tallahassee that could impact your retirement. As tax laws change and programs like Social Security and Medicare are updated, it's important to have a plan that can help protect your future. Your money needs to last beyond election cycles and presidential administrations, and Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services can help you figure out the potential impact on your plan with their election stress test. They'll help you create a plan to navigate changes in our economy and within our government, no matter who's in the Oval Office or the State House. To schedule your stress test, call or text ELECTION to 863-877-1188. Call or text ELECTION to 863-877-1188.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor.
Having that financial and healthcare power of attorney set up is huge. The power of attorney is going to take care of you while you're here alive, and that's why I think it's ultimately important that you get those things taken care of.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the show right here, the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. He's the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. We're continuing the conversation about making your retirement money last as long as you. Because as we enter retirement and the subsequent stages of life, the financial landscape becomes increasingly complex, marked by, of course, rising inflation, stock market risk, and shifting tax obligations. There's so much. So Phillip is here to walk us through. So Phillip, let's explore how retirees can actually best manage these financial pressures. Let's begin with the challenge of stock market volatility.
Well, and that can be a challenge, right? Because we don't ever know which direction the market's going to go. We can have a couple good days, we can have a couple good weeks, a couple good months, and then all of a sudden things drop off. And so I think it's important that people understand that when we look at things, yes, you need some market exposure. But the problem is how much do you need? And that becomes the million-dollar question, is what do we need? Because we need to look at your age, how close you are to retirement, or how far are you into retirement, and making sure that we use appropriate applications for the investing process. And then we want to make sure that we're looking at the rule of 100. Now, what's that mean? Well, the rule of 100 simply states that, let's say you're 65 years old. It says we should have 65% of our portfolio safe and secure. 35% should be at risk. Now, what does that mean, safe and secure? Well, the definition should be into something where you cannot lose money. Because if we lose money, now we've got to make more to bring it back. So it's a case of making sure that we're in that area where we have some of our money where we cannot lose it. And then we can take risk with some of our other money to help catch up and beat inflation over time. These are two areas that we need to make sure that we're focusing on as we build our retirement plan.
You know, Phillip, another significant concern for retirees is that future tax rates could escalate. You kind of mentioned this earlier in the show, and that really affects a lot of retirees who have based their planning on current tax rates. So, Phillip, how can retirees safeguard their finances against the possibility of rising taxes?
Danielle, rising taxes are a huge possibility. I would say if I was giving it a statistical chance, I'd put it up there about 95% chance that we're going to see increased taxes, if not 99% chance, right? Because of a lot of things. One of them is our growing national debt. It is astronomical how much debt we have taken on in the last 4 or 5 years. And so somebody's got to pay that debt. Somebody's got to service the interest. We got to make the interest payment. Even if we don't pay the debt down, we got to pay the interest rates. And interest rates have gone up substantially over the last 2 years, 3 years. And so how do we pay it? Well, we got to raise taxes in order to pay that. So then the other thing we look at is we've got expiring tax cut legislation. Again, that would be the Trump tax code cuts, we call them. And that is going to happen at the end of 2025. So December 31st of 2025, our existing tax code reverts back to what it was before, starting January 1st of 2026, which means we are all going to see a tax increase on January 1st of 2026, unless something changes, and I wouldn't hold my breath. So we've got that issue we got to deal with. We need to be able to diversify where we pull our income from. We need to tax diversify our portfolios because most folks, when they retire, the majority of their money is in their 401k, their IRAs, which is all going to be taxable when they pull it out. And that can be a problem because a lot of folks out there have saved and have done a great job. But now, all of a sudden, at 73, you got to start pulling money out whether you want to or not because Uncle Sam wants to collect that tax revenue. So we'll look at things like Roth conversions. How can we maximize your current tax bracket? And it may be minimal things that we're able to do, but every little thing that we can move from a taxable account to a tax-free account is going to save you down the road. And that is part of our core retirement design process to walk you through that and make sure that we take care of taxes and try to get them as low as possible.
You know, there's also the pressure challenge of inflation, Phillip, right? We talked about taxes, but now we're moving on into inflation. So as the cost of living steadily climbs, retirees may find their budgets becoming increasingly tight, causing their savings to deplete more even quickly than anticipated. So I'm curious, how can retirees now adjust their financial plans when it comes to coping with inflation and maintaining their standard of living throughout retirement?
Yeah, that's right. Because a lot of folks that are retired now, let's face it, they put those plans together prior to 2021. And back then, man, we didn't have much inflation. If we had a 2% inflation rate, 2.5%, that was high. And so everybody built their plan based on no inflation or very little inflation, I should say. And so now we have to revisit that. What do we need to tweak? What do we need to change to make sure that we don't run out of money as folks need to withdraw more to keep up with this inflation that we're battling right now. And then on top of that, if inflation wasn't enough, inflation when it comes to healthcare costs is even higher than typical inflation. And so that's another issue. And here's one that I think not enough people really pay attention to, and that's making sure you optimize your Social Security. Mm-hmm. Again, too many people, I believe, take Social Security at 62 because they're afraid it's going to run out. It's convenient. They don't really need the money. They just want to take it. Folks, you need to make sure that you're running the analysis to get to the best possible situation you can when it comes to Social Security. Again, that's one of the things we look at in our core retirement design. Give us a call, 863-877-1188, to schedule your core retirement analysis where we'll help you make sure that you're on the path to the retirement you always dreamed of. It's simple, as easy as a 30-minute phone call. That number to call is 863-877-1188.
That's right, Phillip. And let's also leave our listeners with what guidance could you offer to individuals who are potentially worried about outliving their savings? As we're talking about this whole thing about, outliving your money, how can we also not outlive our savings?
Well, I think it comes down to this, Danielle, is that we have to have a plan. And that plan has to be written so that you can pick it up and look at it and make sure that you are on target, to make sure we're running the way we need to be running. And so that's a big part of our core retirement design, is making sure we have that written retirement income plan where people know where their income is going to come from. We also need to look at how much are they spending, because that's a big deal, right? If we're overspending, then that's going to really reduce our portfolio, which means we may come up short at the end. I've had to have some difficult conversations with folks that says, hey, look, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to run out of money. And that's difficult sometimes, but that's what we're here for. We're here to help coach people into and through retirement. Again, that's why I developed the core retirement design. That core retirement design looks at 3 key components of retirement. It looks at risk. How much risk are you taking? Because what I have found is about 60% of the folks out there have too much risk in their portfolio when they go into retirement. There's about another 10 to 20% that have not enough risk in their portfolio. And there's another 20% they hit it right. Here's what I will say, though. Don't think you're the one that got it right until you run an analysis to make sure, because that could be a dangerous bombshell if you get it wrong. That's number one. Number 2 is taxes. We want to make sure that folks in retirement are paying the least amount of taxes over their lifetime and hopefully over their beneficiary's lifetime. And so we'll run several analyses to make sure that we put together a plan where they can start taking advantage of their current tax brackets. And lastly is going to be our written retirement income plan, making sure that the income you get meets what you need and that we're still growing our portfolio so there's something left at the end, because we never know how long we're going to live. Give me a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
You do not want to miss this opportunity to speak with Phillip and his team. They will walk you through every step of your retirement plan. There's no cost. There's no obligation. It's simple. It's free. It's complimentary. Take this opportunity. Call Phillip and his team at 863-877-1188. You want to find out how you cannot outlive your savings, so simply give that number a call, 863-877-1188. We're just getting started here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. You want to stay with us. We have more coming up right after this. We'll be right back.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan, or to see if you are paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 270-201-7080. That's VISIT to 270-201-7080.
Are you confused by all these campaign promises and political talk? Or maybe even frustrated? You're not alone. Phillip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team keep an eye on proposals made by politicians in Washington and up in Tallahassee that could impact your retirement. As tax laws change and programs like Social Security and Medicare are updated, it's important to have a plan that can help protect your future. Your money needs to last beyond election cycles and presidential administrations, and Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services can help you figure out the potential impact on your plan with their election stress test. They'll help you create a plan to navigate changes in our economy and within our government, no matter who's in the Oval Office or the State House. To schedule your stress test, call or text ELECTION to 863-877-1188. Call or text ELECTION to 863-877-1188.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor.
Welcome back into the show here. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. He's the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. Now, we talk a lot about all the risks to your money in retirement, but research from Vanguard indicates that investors often underestimate the risk of cognitive decline. Now, it's a scary risk, and it could rob you of your best judgment, and sometimes it can go unnoticed for years. So with that thought in mind, we want to bring you to our top 5 list for this week. And that is the top 5 scams that you should be aware of. Phillip, I'm looking forward to this conversation today because in retirement, I think sometimes we tend to get a little too relaxed in thinking that we're not going to get targeted.
That's right, we do. And this is a good topic. I think this is good because, we've had our shred year. We do our shred event every year, and that helps us get rid of some of the stuff. But it can be hard to talk about some of these things that we're going to talk about today because no one likes to feel like they're foolish or they're naive or they got taken advantage of. So one thing that might make you feel better, though, is that when it comes to those phishing emails, it's actually millennials and Gen Zers who tend to get tricked the most. So it's your kids and grandkids that have fallen for this stuff too. So, they don't actually know everything, and you're not the only one that gets sucked into some of these scams.
That's right. And so when it comes to people making sure that they're not overlooking anything, how have you seen some of these scams or even elder abuse come in your many years helping people with their retirement?
There's been a lot that I've seen over the years. I've seen people click on the wrong thing when it comes to an email and their computer. I had a client that happened to them. They actually didn't click on the link. They got a phone call from somebody saying they were from Microsoft and that they realized there was an issue with her program and that they needed her to log in and go to a certain site. And before she realized what she had done, they had taken over her computer.
Oh, my gosh.
And this was it was like 6, 7 o'clock at night. So remember, older people, even me, that time of year, that time of day, you kind of start to really get tired and you don't think straight. And so that's what happened to her. I've had friends that their parents have got sucked into that scam of gift cards, right? They'd go to Walmart or someplace and they would buy a gift card. So they told them, hey, we need a $500 gift card for this. And it was actually one of those romance deals where they romanced the person. So there are so many things out there when it comes to scams and older folks that we have to have our guards up. We have to be really persistent to doubt a lot of these things. I know we get sucked in because we're lonely. We want somebody to talk to.
Right.
And folks, that is what the scammers really and truly look for, is somebody like that, because they can get their fingers in there and not let go because they've got you then.
That's right. And Phillip, I want to kind of go through and give our listeners the top 5 list this week that comes from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Kind of a different source of information, but they recently issued an advisory warning against a few scams. You actually mentioned it, but just listing them off here: precious metal scams, romance scams, fee scams, and then the other 2 involve prescriptions and Social Security, and that is fake prescription and Social Security scams. These are the top 5. In your experience, Phillip, what's the biggest indicator that you might be dealing with a scammer?
Well, let's look at a couple of things. When we look at the precious metal scams, right, it really starts with that spam email or video forecasting the economic collapse or government seizures or claims to know some hidden secret out there that you don't know about. The message is basically that the only way to survive this pending doom and gloom is by owning precious metals, and seller pressures customers to use their retirement savings to buy coins. That's a big deal. Romance scams, like I said earlier, it happens when fraudsters pose as successful people seeking friendship or romantic relationships online. They may contact their target frequently by calling or texting, but avoid wanting to meet them in person or be seen on a video chat. Conversations eventually turn to money and markets, and that's when you start to feel that pressure. Hey, I need this, I need that. The fee scams, when fraudsters convince their target that they can earn unrealistically high profits in a short amount of time. However, the victim changes their mind and tries to withdraw their money, it's too late. They charge them enormous fees or alleged commissions, and there's nothing there. You talked about the other 2, the fake prescriptions and the Social Security. We look at those, and you think about the fake prescription one, those are harmful to your bank account and to your health. And so if you're buying prescriptions online, please do your homework. Look for the verified internet pharmacy practice site seal of approval from the U.S. Association of Board of Pharmacies, and talk to your doctor if you're unusually, if you're having unusual side effects or your health conditions don't improve. I can't imagine, not only have you been taken advantage of, but your health suffers because of it. And the last was the Social Security scam. It involves trying to get you to give out your Social Security number. And they may threaten to suspend your benefits unless you provide additional information. Folks, if it's the Social Security Administration calling you, they have your number. They don't need you to give it to them. And so, folks, don't give your Social Security number out over the phone to somebody just calling you. That is a very dangerous thing to be doing. And it happens every day, Danielle.
Right. And Phillip, I'm glad we're kind of going over these so people can get very familiar of what to look out for. So if you feel like you might be dealing with a scammer, Phillip, what advice should you give our listeners? What should they do in that situation?
So I think that one is not so much how do you deal with them, but first you have to understand that you're being scammed, right? And so I think sometimes someone is forceful in trying to get you to hand over money. That should be a huge red flag. If somebody you don't know starts asking you for information that you normally wouldn't give somebody off the street, and they're pushy about it, and that we need to take as something that is a scam. We need to be very protective of our information and not just be giving it out to anybody on the phone.
And Phillip, when we're going to add actually another scam to discuss today, this might come as a surprise for everyone, but the family caregiver scam. This is a tough one, but when you have a relative or an acquaintance take advantage of someone vulnerable, how can working with a financial professional help provide some protection when it comes to this?
So, that's a tough one, because especially if it's a family member, and it's hard to deal with on both sides, not just you, the person that's being taken advantage of, but even on the other side, from the professional side. At what point does a professional step in and help, right? At what point can we? And because we see it sometimes where, now all of a sudden we have a family member that's there to help give care, or we have a caregiver we can see that's taking advantage of somebody. You need to call the authorities. They can help you investigate and get you the help you need in order to get out of that situation, because that is a very hard position to be in, Danielle.
That's right, Phillip. And as we're wrapping up our show today, whether we're dealing with fraudsters, market volatility, taxes, high healthcare costs, or inflation, let's remind our listeners, how can a simple plan, help make sure that our money will last?
Well, I think having a plan is a big deal. And so making sure that we don't lose what we have. And I think we kind of skipped over a little thing here that I want to bring to everybody's attention. And here's just some tips that you may want to take into consideration for helping you be more protective. Never make a payment or give sensitive information to anybody online that you've only met online. You've never seen them face to face, so you've never sat down with them. Before making any investments, get a second opinion. Talk it over with a financial advisor, a trusted friend, or a family member. Don't trade in markets or products that you don't understand. And if somebody calls you out of the blue, hang up. These are big things, because what happens if those guys get a hold of you and your money, they can wipe you out. I've seen it happen, and it's an unfortunate situation, because when it happens, usually you can't get that money back. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can with what we have to make sure our money lasts as long as we need it to. And again, Danielle, that's why I created the Core Retirement Design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of, to make sure that they're paying the least amount of taxes, that they have the income they're going to need day in and day out. Then give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule their Core Retirement Design. And that's a big deal. I want to make sure people understand that having these things in order help you fight against things like scams and fraudsters who try to take advantage of you. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your Core Retirement Analysis.
If you have any questions about your own retirement plan, do not hesitate to give Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services a call. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. This is your time, your opportunity to speak with a financial professional, because with all of the information overload and crazy information going on right now, you don't have to plan for retirement alone. Get some assistance, get some help. Call the number 863-877-1188. As we close out today, we want to remind you that it's the time to get your voice to be heard. Make your way down to the polls, get your vote in, take some opportunity, get some time to get down there to the polls. In the meantime, we are grateful that you are listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be right back. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great one.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation. This radio show is a paid placement.